Good morning. Welcome to Yoga with Jenny. Here we are again in my home studio. Can you hear me? Hopefully you can hear my sound. Quality wasn't great the other day, so we're hoping that this stream will be a little bit better. We're going to get started. Today is more of a traditional hip opening sequence, I would say. So we are going to be working on opening the adductors, lengthening the inner legs, and also the outer hip, in addition to the front of the hip flexors, and the hamstrings, the back of the leg, and hip musculature. So let's go ahead and get started. You're going to jump onto your mat. I have a friend there, of course. I'm playing with my picture. Jump onto your mat. Find your way to hands and knees, table, and begin to move your spine, cat and cow. Inhaling to arch the spine, lift the head and the tail, hip bones widen. Exhale to round your back, press down with hands and knees and feet and shins. Lift up into downward facing dog, just some general movements here at the beginning. Stretch out your dog pose. Moving forward to plank pose. Come slowly down all the way. Lift your heart up, cobra. And then lift and press downward facing dog. Downward facing dog, come forward to the front of your mat. Lift your heart halfway up, inhaling. Exhale, bow. Inhale, stand tall. And hands together at your heart. This is where I struggle with being able to fit my whole body. Let's reach up one more time. And then exhale and bow forward and fold. Just starting to flow a little more. Inhale, lifting yourself halfway. Exhale, back to plank pose. And slowly lower. Heart light, cobra. And back to downward facing dog. Stepping or jumping forward. Remember, if you need to be higher, slide your hands up and pencil onto blocks. Exhale, fold. Put a bend in your knees, come all the way up to stand, hands together. Two more of the same. Sun A, just moving through our spines and our body. Inhale, heart light. Halfway up, flat back. Exhale, plank pose. And lower. Inhale, cobra. And exhale, down dog. Stepping it forward, jumping forward, inhale halfway. Exhale back. Inhale to stand up. Hands together one more time. Inhale, reach up. Lift up, look up. Exhale, bow forward and fold. Inhale, halfway up. Exhale to plank pose and you lower. Heart up, cobra. And exhale, downward dog. Now I've left my padding here. We're coming to Anjane. Starting the sequence for our hips with opening the front part of the hip, the pelvis, and the hip flexors specifically, as well as the quads. Set yourself up, 90-degree angle at the front knee, 90-degree angle at the back knee. Lift your torso up, reach up. Remember, it's not so important to bend your body back as it is to have your pelvis be aligned vertically. So instead of having a tucking under or an arch in the back, your pelvic bones, your hip bones, are level. If you're not feeling much lengthening in the front of the hip, step the front foot further forward. Lean your body weight a little bit further. Pelvis comes further forward and down. Sweeping the back arm, the hip that I'm stretching up and over into a side bend. Lengthening through the lower back as well as the hip flexors. Right back up into downward facing dog. Middle of our two sides, come forward into plank pose. Good symmetry through the body. Lower with control. Lift your heart. And come back to downward dog. Same sequence on the other side. I'm stepping forward into Anjane, my low lunge, lifting the heart. Coming further forward. Keeping the belly and heart lifted. Side bending away from that hip. Back to downward facing dog. Same vinyasa sequence here in between the two sides. And before beginning anything else. Separate jump forward, feet to the hands for Malasana, squat pose. We're going to start to open up the inner legs. So in your Malasana squat pose, you can start coming down, elbows on thighs. Widening the feet slightly always helps with flexibility. If you want to come lower and you know that your knees are a little restricted, give yourself some props, something to rest against, but also have those legs nice and open. Or without the props, also okay. Let's reach down, lift the hips up, and lengthen those legs. Beginning to widen the legs. So moving into Prasarita Padottanasana. At this point, I like to drag my blocks a little bit in front or in between the legs, as the case may be. We're going to go ahead and deepen the stretch to the inner legs. As I bend one knee, I'm coming over, shifting my weight into that side. I'm going to start to turn my foot out and then stretch and lengthen that inner leg. So I'm not going all the way down, flopping. You'll notice that my hips completely twisted. So this is a kind of a lifted and supported opening for the hip. And then I'm going to come across to the other side. Elbow to thigh, elbow to knee, open that hip. Let's do it one more time each side. Good. Coming back together with the feet pointing forward, bend your knees and roll your spine upward. Good, let's turn one set of toes out. I'm going to my right leg turned out into warrior two pose. As we work to open the inner thighs, and it also does strengthen those outer hips. So I'm going to place my hand on that outer leg now and push my leg out into my hand. As I push out, my knee does spin open a little bit more. So my knee isn't inside of my arch. It isn't pointing to the inner side of my foot. Come lower. So placing the hand on the leg, the elbow on the leg, and stretch the top arm long. Extended side angle posture. Again, this is for my inner leg as well as those outer hip muscles. Press down, rise up. I'm just going to the other side, turning my left toes out, my right toes slightly in. As I bend my knee into warrior two pose, angling that knee outward, but not from the knee or the toes itself, but from the thigh. Rotating open, strength from those outer hip muscles. Warrior two. From warrior two, the legs stay the same, but this elbow, this arm is resting on that inner thigh, helping open that leg a little bit more. Top arm stretching alongside your head. Extended side angle posture. Press down, rise up. Bend your knees, jump or wiggle those feet together. We're going to turn to face the front edge of the mat, stretch up nice and tall. Bow forward and fold. Lift your heart halfway up and make your way back to downward facing dog. Here's a chance to flow if you like through your sequence of Vinyasa. We're going to step the right foot forward. Turn the back toes out. This is Parasvottanasana. It's a great place to have blocks for your hands. So I've got my front knee pretty bent and my back leg pretty straight. My toes turn out a little bit and my hips are squaring to the front. I'm moving into my hamstrings, the back part of the leg. So as I work towards lengthening the front knee, I don't want to see my pelvis start to shift. So little teeny incremental movements of the knee I find work better than going all at once to a straight knee. Good, bend the knee. Put your hands on your hips and come all the way up. We're going to parallel both feet and bring the blocks with us. Both legs, both inner thighs, both sets of hamstrings. Lift your heart up and then lean forward. And I often recommend doing this with bent knees as well. Again, we don't want to go too quickly. Our muscles tend to fight us if we go too quickly into these stretches. Bend the knees and come on up. We're going to turn to the back edge of your mat by turning the left toes out, the right toes in. Go ahead and bring your blocks with you for Parasvottanasana or pyramid pose on the left. As I come forward again, I'm bending my front knee a lot. And then it's not about getting to straight, but about feeling what's going on in your hips as you lengthen that front leg. What's going on as you lean your body weight forward. can, great forward, relax the upper body a little bit more. Bend the front knee, bring your hands to your hips, and come all the way back up. Swiveling all the way back around, and then stepping or jumping your feet together. We're going to once again face the front edge of the mat. Inhale your heart up. Exhale, plank pose and lower. Vinyasa flow. And here's where it starts to look like a very familiar yoga opening sequence. Pigeon pose. I've got my right knee forward, and I've got my chin, my foot slightly angled across my mat. I'm not forcing it forward, twisting at the knee, but I'm also not letting my hips give in and twist off to the side. Lifted proud pigeon, or you can lean forward and hold. Plant your hands, lift yourself up, back to downward facing dog, coming through your flow. Second side, left side, sliding that knee forward. I like to pause at the top for a little bit of flex or opening, and then come down, which puts a lot more of the stretch in those outer hip rotators when you lean your body towards that front back. Good, plant your hands, come back up, downward facing dog. And then lower your knees, back to child's pose for a minute. If you're looking at that pigeon pose going, my knees don't like that, my hips don't like that, then remember that you can always skip ahead and go to figure four. Figure four is a pigeon pose that's reclining, it's on your back, so that's where we're headed next. It's also known as thread the needle. So we're lying on our back, one ankle crossed over the opposite knee, and then the easiest way to do it is to just maybe hug this whole shape up closer to you or add pressure here at the thigh. The other alternative would be as in baby cradle. So holding the pigeon pose as if you were in that upright seated position. Some people may be able to hold with their elbows, but I'm not quite there. My leg is not that close to my body yet. From this version of pigeon, we're going to move into reclined cow face pose. So the knees are crossed, and then you're holding somewhere either at the knees or the shins or the feet. I'm trying to bring my feet towards my outer hips. So in other words, it's not to the center, the feet are turning open. Unwind and relax. For the other side, figure four, here, here, or hugging it up. I apologize for the dog noises. And here's that cow face pose, also known as Gomukhasana in Sanskrit, is to have your knees crossed right? Like you're sitting in a chair, but then your feet kind of going to the sides of the body, not forward, but to the sides of the body. So the wonderful thing about that reclined version of cow face pose is we don't have the pressure of the floor to kind of turn the thighs and hips from, which can cause torquing in the knees. So when you do the cow face pose here seated, what I'll ask you to do is sit upright. If you're a little bit stiffer or tighter, sit up a little higher. And then we add even more help to the knees by using blocks. So I am going to cross my knee one over the other. I'm starting with my right in my sequence. And then my feet, right, go to the sides of my mat. You can hug them a little closer to the outer hips or hug them a little bit more towards the front edge of your mat. So this is a great place if you need to support. You can put this block between your knee and your other leg. You can even put a block between your bottom knee and the floor. So the pressure of that top leg doesn't torque your knee, right? So blocks are so wonderful. The other way I like to support the top knee is to just hold it. So instead of thinking push down, actually do the opposite. Lift that knee up towards you. And that may be familiar from the other day, our internal rotation through the hip. I'm going to just go ahead and switch sides. So I'm crossing at the knees and then bringing my feet out away from my body, forward, almost like they're coming to the front edge of the mat. If it needs a little bit of help, hold that top knee. If it needs more help in the knees, push the bottom knee up as well. Unwind the legs. So I'm reversing. I'm going back to my first side that I did for Gomukhasana. And I've got my knees stacked. Again, you can continue to pad with the block under the bottom knee or holding the top knee. What I'm going to do is I'm going to lean away from this top knee, though, with a side. So I'm going to hold it with my opposite hand and then stretch my body away from the hip. So my stretch goes all the way from my hip up through the side of the body. Using body weight to increase the length. The sensation, too, has increased drastically. Try to enjoy, try to breathe. And if it just feels like too much, you back out. You don't lean as far. You can come back up and we'll switch sides, other side. By this point, the hips, you should really be feeling something inside of your hips. If you feel it all the way on the back or the outside edge, or you feel it inside the hip itself. Here I am leaning away from the front hip, the top leg hip. Side stretching. Seems like it's not related to my hip, but if you think about taking your body weight away from that hip, it's going to stretch those muscles further. And then come back up. Same as we did on Tuesday, we're going to end with a seated version of just restful, hopefully a little more restful, simple cross-legged is fine. Hands at your thighs or knees. So experiencing what is it like to move the hips in all different directions and planes of motion, lengthening those muscles, experiencing the difference in this seated cross-legged position. From your normal feeling. Do you notice if your knees have dropped a slight amount? Do you feel a little bit more upright, less bent forward? Or is it something completely different? You just feel a little more at ease. As always, those deep breaths to end here. Starting with and returning to that diaphragmatic movement. So your belly, your chest, your ribs are all moving as you breathe. Remembering that's our quickest and easiest way to help ourselves in the midst of the messy life, messy, chaotic, busy, everyday life, is to take a deep breath. We can help remind our nervous system, calming it down a little bit. And it's not that the thoughts disappear, right? Our thoughts, we just can notice them a little bit clearer. It's not that our body pains, aches and pains will completely disappear. It's just we become a little more familiar with where they come from, maybe why we have them, and how we can ease them in some small way. May we be happy, may we be healthy, may we be more at peace and live with more ease in our body, mind, and heart. Namaste. Let me know your feedback. Hopefully this sequence helped you to feel your hips, but hopefully in a more well-rounded way than just only stretching with those outer hip stretches, which is that kind of that traditional hip opening sequence. So let me know your feedback, and as always, go ahead and subscribe, and hope to see you here again. Have a great day.